So, hello everyone. My name's Claude Schreier, and I'm nervous because this is a very important panel for me and for the panelists, and I think for everyone. We're talking about the climate emergency. We're talking about IPOC artists and their important contributions, past, present, and future. So the panel is called National Cultural Policy and Arts in Response to the Climate Change. And for those who don't know, this is a gathering called Divergence Multi-Arts Festival and Conference, Art in the Time of Healing, the Importance of IPOC Arts in Planetary Renewal. So I was asked by Kevin and Charles Smith to moderate this panel, and I was happy to do so. And what we will do is hear from the three panelists, 10, 11 minutes of short presentations, and then engage in conversation. I see there's a number of people online. Well, welcome everyone. So I'm going to introduce you guys in a minute, but I just wanted to also mention that I'm a podcast producer, and I've gotten permission from panelists to record this, and of Simpamo as well, as episode 92 of my podcast. And I just recorded one this morning with Keith Barker, who's the artistic director of the space that we're in, which is Native Earth Performing Arts. So it's an exciting package that I'm going to be publishing in the next little while, including hopefully a conversation with Charles this afternoon, and a couple of days ago with Shannon Litzenberger. So documentation is really important. You, Kevin and Charles, you just talked about that, and even though not so many people are here now, I think this trace is really important. So I'm really, really happy to talk about these issues because I'm passionate about art, and more recently about climate change and all of the related issues of climate justice and so on. So what else can I say? The land acknowledgement that Parul Pandya, I hope I pronounced her name right, was lovely this morning, and I won't repeat it, but it's really important for me everywhere I go to know where I am and who I'm speaking with and what is the history. And so we are in Tekaronhiáhkhwa and Treaty 13 territory, and land acknowledgements are not meant to be lightly taken or lightly given. They're important in particular today because we're talking about the land, we're talking about our climate, our environment. So I just wanted to do my own land acknowledgement in that sense of thanking the Indigenous people of this region and across Canada for everything that they do. So climate, art and climate, it's not an easy topic. I spend a lot of time thinking and writing about it, and it makes some people very nervous, and I can understand that. There's echo anxiety that people have that can be painful. But I wanted to start, before I pass to the panelists, I just yesterday I published an episode, 89, which is a short quotation by Nigerian writer and poet Ben Okri. Some of you might know him. He was a Booker Prize winner, and he wrote an article in The Guardian on November 12th that just, I don't know what word to use, it touched me deeply. It's called "Artists Must Confront the Climate Crisis. We Must Write as If These Are the Last Days." And he talks about how we are on the edge of the biggest crisis that we have ever faced. Most people know that. Some people aren't feeling it yet. Others are literally feeling it because of where they are geographically in the world. And that we need a new philosophy for these times, for this near terminal moment in the history of the human. So Okri thinks that we are going to have to be new artists to redream it. And those are powerful words. New artists to redream the world. And I think that's what this whole event is about, is together, how can we rethink the world that is unfortunately falling apart. And what he suggests is what he calls existential creativity, to serve the unavoidable truth of our times, and a visionary type of existentialism, to serve the future that we must bring about from the brink of our environmental catastrophe. We can only make the future from the depth of the truth we face now. So I encourage you to read all of his article because it's quite powerful. Words can change minds, they can transform societies, words and art. So let's jump in to the issue. It's complex, as I said, and what our panelists are going to do is give different presentations. I think Santee's going to talk about her art practice and maybe her worldview. Anthony's going to talk about his work in policy, which is really important, because if you're going to change the world, you have to actually change the institutions that are running our systems. And Devon Hardy's going to talk about tools that they're building, and how we can empower ourselves with measurement tools and other ways. So those three perspectives, I think, will enrich your understanding of some of the issues, because we won't cover them all today. And then we'll have dialogue. I see there's quite a few of you online. I'm happy to receive your questions through the chat, or if you want to just turn your mic on and speak, that would be great, because we have until 12:30 or so a good chunk of time. We'll speak in English, mais s'il y a des questions en français, I can translate. I'm happy to do that. And I wanted, just before starting, acknowledge that I had a really good conversation with Shannon Litzenberger a couple of days ago, and she was moderated another panel here on Wednesday, where she talked about state of emergence, why we need artists right now. And I just want to connect a bit the dots between the presentation she gave and the panelists talking about the precarity of artists, and what is needed from artists now, what the world needs from artists. So there's a tension there on how do we ensure that artists have the resources that they need to address issues as complex as the climate emergency. I know they can. It's just a question of capacity. So Shannon raised two questions in her paper, and I'll just put them out there. What would it mean for a society to ambitiously mobilize artists to do their most essential work well and fully, with the aim of catalyzing transformative change? Catalyzing transformative change. And her second question is, could the chaotic domain of the artist's creative process be fertile ground from which a healthier, more sustainable system of cultural production can emerge? So keep those in mind, and we will come back to them, because I think they're all valid questions. In particular, how does it apply to the climate emergency? Santee, how are you? Can you hear me?
Good. Luego.
All right. Well, we've known each other, so I'm just going to introduce you briefly. People can read your bio. You're a well-known artist, but for those who don't know, you're from the Kahnyen'kehàka Nation, and you live in 6 nations, and I think that's where you are today, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're also the, I was so impressed. You're the artistic director, of course, of Kawahi Dance Theater, but you're also the Chancellor of McMaster University right now, which I think is a wonderful thing. Thank you for doing that. So I won't introduce you further, because I think people can read more. But I invite you now. I invite you to talk about your work, anything you want to talk about, art and climate, and then we'll take it from there. So Santee, the floor is yours.
Kahnyen'kehàka. Greetings, everyone. My name is Santee Smith. And I am from Onkwehonwe'neha, which is also known as 6 Nations of the Grand River. And that's where I am right now, in my home. And thank you, Nyako, for inviting me to be part of the panel. I think it's really important conversations, and important what we do as artists to uplift people's consciousness to a lot of things that get sort of glossed over in our daily lives, and to activate our minds and our hearts, which is the purpose of all of our song, dance, ceremony, is to make a mind-heart connection. And that's what I hope to do through my work at Kaha Dance Theater and my other projects as well. So I just wanted to, for this, because of the topic about the environment, it's really coming from Onkwehonwe'neha, or an Indigenous perspective, which is Onkwehonwe. The environment and sustainability is an integral, if not the founding process, of how we view the world. Interconnectedness, responsibility as human beings to be caretakers of the earth, to be forward thinkers about what we do now will affect 7 generations later. And that has always been our understanding since remember. And it's written into our wampum belt designs and our pottery shards and all of those things that are encoded knowledges, that what I am using today and what my family has used to understand our responsibilities. So the work that I do through recently through Kahawi dance, there's a piece called SKéN. And SKéN means peace or balance in Kahnyen'kehàka, the Mohawk language. And I really, for many years, have felt, and through my work, addressed balance. And that the fact that the world is quite out of balance, that our society, even within our Onkwehonwe'neha community, is off balance through obvious colonial implications and residential schools and loss of language and all of those things, denigration of women. And so SKéN literally is about how do we bring ourselves back into balance in a world that is out of balance. And as well, I wanted to address climate change. So we set the work in 2050 in the future, and post climate catastrophe, and the story of two Onkwehonwe'neha women, an auntie and a niece, who have to flee floodwaters and return to our homelands. The Kahnyen'kehàka homelands, where we lived many years, is in upstate New York, and the foot of the Adirondack Mountains. And then so we, in our story, we flee into a bunker camp in upstate New York, high in the Adirondack Mountains, and try to rebuild a community. So it was also then about how can we rebuild a community based on our fundamental understandings of how we lived with the natural living universe and how we respected the natural living universe in the belief of our ancestors. So it's not necessarily a new philosophy. It is returning to revitalize the sustaining ecological balance philosophy of our ancestors and bringing it into the current, in the process of that. And in the story, there's climate survivors that come into the camp, and we have to integrate them in, but they have a choice. And this is the other thing that's all linked into our understanding of Kahnyen'kehàka, the Great Law, which is the foundational philosophy, way of life of everybody is, as an individual, has free will and choice, but that does not negate them from the sense of community. So what our choices affect community. And that's understanding our kinship relationships with every living thing in the universe. And so that's part of everybody. And the refugees had to come into the camp to agree, to accept, to live in peace, accept, to live in balance. And only then could they be integrated in. And so there's challenges with that. So some characters that don't want to live in peace and balance, and what do you do in that case, where others are not wanting to align or realign to a peaceful way of coexisting and honoring balance. So that is part of that work, is just to bring awareness. So I feel my work artistically, creatively, is about sharing perspectives, and this would be a perspective of how do we live in SKéN? What is the important thing about SKéN? And also our process. So our process is land-based. We have worked in the Adirondack Mountains and really unraveling and experimenting and exploring what does it mean to align with land in our bodies, in physicality, in our emotions, in our minds and our hearts and our body. How do we listen to land? And so many of us have been disconnected to what that is and how we do that and how do we connect. That was a huge part of our creation process, is to return to our homelands and start that process, which is durational, takes a long time. And I'm just beginning. I'm just beginning to explore what that is. So that's really important. And then to honor Indigenous dramaturgy and our models of creating, which are also respectful for land and humanity and our kinship relationships. So I'll just share, if I can, technically, a little clip from SKéN, and if it doesn't work, I can share the link. This is a little sort of explanation context further, and you get to see some clips of the. Can you see that? Play.
Kahawi dance theater's performances share our perspectives, Indigenous mindset and experiences, stories that are ancestral, relevant, thought-provoking, and visceral. SKéN is no exception. SKéN is a post-apocalyptic, Indigenous, futuristic adventure that reminds us of the importance of living in a reciprocal relationship with the living universe. In 2021, we are in the midst of unprecedented climate changes at irreversible devastation to life. We are living in a world careening further out of balance with dire climate change projections that will impact every single human being, every single living being. The concept SKéN translates from Kahnyen'kehàka to mean peace or balance. Our production SKéN is an attempt at rebuilding balance and reestablishing Onkwehonwe'neha, a traditional way of life. The embodied storytelling is set in 2050 at total environmental collapse, mourning the loss of life and home, and Auntie and Niece flee from the community of 6 nations to Kahnyen'kehàka traditional homelands in the Adirondack Mountains. For me, the most personal aspect of SKéN is addressing grief held in the mind and the body, inspired by our condolence ceremony. The experience of working in my ancestral homelands was a grieving process, grieving with and for homelands, trying to listen and respond to earth. SKéN has a sense of urgency which parallels the looming urgency of real-life climate changes. The question, how do we reestablish community after environmental collapse? How do we listen and align with land? What are the actions that we need to take now to help the next generations? The cultural and environmental content is applicable and important for all to hear and to think about, because there is no planet B.
That's just a little clip. And we produced this during the pandemic. We were scheduled to premiere a year ago in a theater in St. Catharines, and we ended up, because of the work that we were doing in land, placing it outside in Burgoyne Woods and making that connection to land, thinking about sustainability as well. A lot of the props and sets were things that we acquired, like tree branches, and some of our props were like organic materials, so that became a part of the process as well. And then I just want to finish further talking about this, leaving SKéN, and then just thinking about the work that I am interested in moving forward is having to do with how do we plan our activity as an organization through the Kahawi Dance Theater in a way that it is addressing and falling into line for traditional ways, an ecological calendar, what we are recognizing the cycles of the earth and bringing that into every function of our organization. So we're in that process now of transforming how we work as an organization that is very much Onkwehonwe and not following Euro-Western standards or status quo, or falling into status quo processes. And then this past, as a result of the pandemic of being home, I became a impassioned gardener. So I created a 360 sunflower stage this year for performance, and as a way of cultivating land and really trying to embody land, work with land, cultivate land, be a custodian of land, and then also integrating that into my work. So that's a really important step for me, which I will continue to do. And this summer, we have 2 other venues creating a 360 sunflower stage for us, for which we will go out and perform in their space. So I feel like this nurturing and cultivating and transforming our understanding of where performance happens, and also being able to share artistically important messages is what I'm passionate about. So I'll leave it there. Nyahkhwa, thank you.
Santee, I just wanted to mention that I'm so impressed that, I so look forward to that work, to see it, live, and hopefully we'll tour with the challenges that we have in touring now. But also just to see how you change the operations of your company, or how they reflect how what you do in day-to-day operations also reflects the work you're doing on stage. I think that's something that we all need to think about. It's not just a question of creating works about climate or the environment, but it's actually changing the way we do everything. And so anyway, thank you so much for your presentation. Now, there's a couple of questions from Charles, who's right up here in the audience here in Toronto. I almost want you to ask them yourself, but I can read them out. It's probably easier. I'll start in the order in which they were received. The first one is to Santee, and you've read it, but I'll just read it out for the recording. How do you envision non-Indigenous artists working with Indigenous artists around the issue of climate change and Indigenous practices of care for the land?
I think that I'm interested in collaboration, so that is a part of it, is finding the partners who are sort of the similar mindset and who are ready to collaborate. And I'm actually looking for people. As we were talking here, I'm sort of jotting down notes because it's come into our conversations with our team and our advisors about who are potential new partners that they're not necessarily within the arts organization. They're outside in the community who have alliances in with the type of work that we're doing. And one of them is working with land. So it's not a non-Indigenous organization, but I'm just thinking about locally here. We have an organization such as Kahnyen'kehàka, which is a ecological restoration initiative on Six Nations, who also partners with other non-Indigenous organizations. So I'm in the process of reaching out and saying, how can we collaborate? For example, I have our home property here where I grew a stage, and I'm really interested in that type of how can we share and support the work that we're doing, and also bring people into that in an interesting and creative way that will, sort of get this messaging out, but also activate people a little bit more. So I'm interested in that, and then others who are aligned as well. So as I mentioned, the sunflower performance, there's 2 organizations who are planning on building sunflower stages for us. They're non-Indigenous, and then we would do performances within the sunflowers, and then also that just brings a different awareness to performance and working in land and cultivating land, and the importance of pollinators and those stories that really come from this land about the sunflowers are Indigenous to this land, and our ancestors cultivated many strains. And so there's many intersection points. Science, what's the science behind that? And also, what else? We haven't done it in a while, but I shared that link. The title of it, though, was Inviting the Land to Shape Us. So it's really, that goes into a creative aspect of, I did a workshop, and the last one I did was in Mexico, in Tepoztlan, and artists of varying backgrounds, embodied artists, came, and I led a workshop called Inviting the Land to Shape Us, which really takes the flip side of the individual being the creator, and I have the idea, and it comes from the human, and it really then just goes to opening and accessing our awareness so that land informs us, and we are informed by natural patterning, natural shapes, the natural energies that really exist in everything, and which exist inside of us as well. And so opening our ways of working, and then I'm interested in also working with companies. If we're, I'm really fascinated by what everybody's saying, and thinking about growth. So that actually goes into working with other people. We've got on this sort of exponential growth, and I've been in contrast to that, it was like more productions, bigger budgets, more things, more, and that's what that trajectory of growth, even rapid or continually growth, is not sustainable. And that's how it filters into the company. Is like, I'm interested in a wave formation where we are replicating natural patterns in everything that we do. So aligning with people and finding those people, because I think it's at early stages for myself and maybe for other companies as well.
Santee, I'm just really curious about your process in terms of thinking about operations, right? The operations of your organization, that, the organization came into existence through the same kind of, not-for-profit structure that's, in the art sector. And I love the proposal of thinking about how an arts organization and its operations can reflect this interrelationship with land. And I just wondered if you could share a few insights into the process so far about that. Thanks.
Sure. We're currently going through this transformation of moving everything towards operating through Onkwehonwe'neha, which means moving everything that we do, from our planning to what we value, is from an Onkwehonwe perspective. And so it's been evolving over the years, and really now it's the time to make it happen and put it into our planning. So we've gone through a research phase, and we just finished in October a community consultation phase with our friends and community members who came together to talk about Kahawa dance theater, but from the framework of how can we transform the organization. And so it's been quite an interesting process, but for me, it's really about looking at those, what I mentioned at the beginning with SKéN, those fundamental understandings of how to be a human being, which come into, the Onkwehonwe Confederacy is the first and oldest democracy, true democracy on Turtle Island. And so we have already established very well governing systems, protocols, collaborations, diplomacy. So it's looking at the Kahnyen'kehàka, which is the great good, or also known as the great law, and aligning with all of those values that we had in that, and the other elements, which it's SKéN, Gansantstatzerla, and Gatnegolio. So it is a way of looking through our historical understandings and practices and diplomacy and governance, and moving that right into the organization, and the implications, and framing everything from that mindset. And it really is this change of mindset, which we've had as the organization and artistically going through, but really just putting that into putting the mindset down as this is how we operate as a as an Onkwehonwe'neha organization, what we value, and also then following our programming to be also seasonal, following ceremony, following practice, what you could call an ecological calendar, and bringing that also, this just brings awareness of everything that we do is in alignment with what's happening in our natural environment, framing that the greatest teacher is our environment, so that if we have a problem or we have solutions that need to happen, that we're looking to natural solutions as our ancestors did. And yeah, so it's quite fascinating and interesting for me and the people who are looking at this, looking through language. So when we say looking through language, that means that it's not just conversational language, it's language that is ceremonial or heightened language that really gives the perspective of how we would have viewed the world, which is also very interestingly action verb-based and metaphorical. So that I've used that in my creation process of language, then guiding the work, because it is so much about actioning, and then moving that into the organization as well. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm also fascinated by Indigenous, what they call now Indigenous permaculture, or basically it's the understanding of natural patterning, and not only in choreography, but in how we operate as an organization, that we need to be choosing processes, structures that are replicating natural patterning. So that includes how we make decisions, what we build at 360 sunflower stage, so that goes into all of that. And then, so there's lots of work to be done. I looked to other people. I was trying to share the links. I was trying to find it. Other Indigenous artists who are already working in this way. Roxanne Schwenzel has the Flowering Permaculture Institute in New Mexico. She has some amazing YouTube videos talking about patterning and our understanding of patterning, and how Indigenous cultures have always replicated our natural patterning. You can see it on the rock paintings all the way into basketry, to the pottery designs that we had, is becoming an alignment with the natural. Patterning is wellness, is wholeness, and we can't be well unless we are in that sacred alignment with land. But actually, if we can message that we will be well as individuals if we align with land, then I think, people are always searching for wellness. How do we be well? How do we be healthy? Well, this is a way to be healthy, is to make your alignments and to support that in society.
Thank you, Santee.
I'm going to share that link. I'm going to keep looking for it.
Yeah, please. And if not, we'll find a way to get it to those who are here and those who are interested.